Back home now, teens can soon face tougher penalties for sharing their crimes on social media as the New South Wales government announces a crackdown on posting and boasting.
For more on this, let's bring in former CEO of Facebook Australia, Scheeler. Stephen, good morning to you.
Morning, guys.
Offenders could be slapped with an extra 2 years jail time if they're caught doing this. What do you make of this proposal?
Sounds sensible to me. I think that promoting what you do, if it's criminal activity on social media, I think it sounds like a good idea.
But, where are the structures in place on places like Meta, for instance, of like getting this stuff down quicker? I mean, the fact that they're posting this, it's allowed to be spread as much as it is, seems to be a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that Meta, TikTok, others, they don't want this content on their platforms. I think they are pretty serious about removing it. It can be hard to remove in terms of detecting it quickly enough. And also, knowing what is a crime and not a crime when it occurs is not easy, right? That's why we have court systems that tell you whether something was a crime or not. So there will be a lot of edge cases where it's not apparent that what's on that video was criminal activity until a court decides, 12 months later. And how is Facebook or TikTok to make that decision? So there's always going to be edge cases, but I think that they probably do a pretty solid job, as much as they can with the state of AI, to remove what they can at the moment.
Is there more that they could be doing?
I'm sure there's always more they can do. I think always the volume of the content on the platforms can overwhelm the AI systems and the human moderators they have. So, but I think in terms of how they've invested in this over the past few years, I'm feeling much better about their ability to tackle everything that they possibly can. But as I said, there's always going to be, unfortunately, what we call edge cases because of the volume of content that are going to get through. I don't think you'll ever get 100% perfection from the platform.
And that's where these laws are going to come in to stop those cases from, maybe put them off putting it up on social media. But speaking of which, let's go to America now. TikTok could be banned over there very shortly. Politicians are about to vote on a new bill there preventing downloads and updates of that app. That legislation could pass in the next week or so. What's going on over there?
So it's a complex topic, TikTok, right? So TikTok's risen from nowhere to now being, I think there's 170 million Americans are on TikTok. A few years ago, that was zero. It's really come from nowhere. And so it's been very successful. Now, TikTok is owned by a company called ByteDance. ByteDance is a Chinese company, and the argument is that that company, ByteDance, is controlled or is influenced from the Chinese Communist Party. Now, if you go into China, you will see, and the Chinese government has said this, that Chinese companies are under the influence of the Chinese government, whether they're private or not, and they have to comply with things like surveillance laws. So the Chinese government has the right to go in and basically look at the data that any company has. And that's just it's public law in China. So the concern in the U.S. is, well, here's a company that, an app that millions of Americans use, but ultimately it's controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. And so now there's very few things that they can agree on in Washington in terms of both sides of the aisle, but this seems to be one of those issues. And so there's been proposals to say...
Is it like putting the toothpaste back in the tube here, though?
Well,
like
there's a challenge. It's a very good point, because even if there's a ban of TikTok, and what they're proposing is that a company like ByteDance should be forced to divest TikTok, sell it to an American company or somebody else. Now, that's probably not going to happen. The Chinese government has said that's probably not going to happen. So if there was this ban that happens, it would say, well, no more TikTok for Americans. Now, the problem then becomes, well, they can ban it from being downloaded from an app store, but they can't necessarily, it's very difficult to remove it from people's phones when it's already there. So that really hasn't been thought through. If they were really going to try to wrestle TikTok off 170 million Americans' phones, that's probably a really tough thing to do. So this has a long way to play out.
Well, if it passes through the House, it'll be certainly setting an interesting precedent, won't it,
it will,
globally?
yes.
Stephen Scheeler, great to have you on. Thanks for joining us. See you soon.
All right, straight ahead, casting magic.
Respect on what?
So it's not going to be easy. It's going to be really hard. And we're going to have to work at this every day, but I want to do that because I want